There are moments when silence is louder than screams. Inside a courtroom built to uphold justice, silence wrapped itself around every bench, every wall, every broken heart in the room. A teenager was dead. A man stood accused. And the system sworn to protect the innocent felt strangely unmoved. No cameras rushed forward. No official spoke with urgency. No answers came easily. Only one question lingered, unspoken but unmistakable. Was justice ever really coming? The teenager at the center of this case wasn't a headline when they were alive. They were a routine, a voice in the house, a name called out at dinner. They had plans, unfinished ones, dreams that never made it past conversation. The kind of future families argue about lovingly, not mourn endlessly. When people say gone too soon, they often underestimate what that really means. It means birthdays that never arrive. It means a bedroom that stays exactly the same. It means a family frozen in the last moment. Everything was normal. The day the teenager didn't come home started like any other. No alarms, no warnings, no sense that this day would divide life into before and after. When hours passed, concern crept in. When calls went unanswered, fear followed. By nightfall, panic had taken hold. Authorities were notified. A missing person report was filed. But what happened next would later raise questions. Questions that still have no clear answers. Search efforts were announced. Statements were made. But according to those closest to the case, urgency felt inconsistent. Critical hours passed. Key locations were checked late, or not at all. Leads were logged, but follow-ups lagged. Families often say law enforcement does their best. And sometimes they do. But sometimes the system moves like it already knows the ending. When the body was found, hope collapsed instantly. No careful phrasing can soften this moment. No official statement can undo it. A teenager, once missing, was now confirmed dead. The case changed from where are they to who did this. And behind the scenes, something else changed too. The pressure. Investigators began assembling a case. Evidence was collected. Witnesses were questioned, but sources close to the investigation later described troubling patterns. Documents that took too long to surface. Contradictions that were quietly ignored. Statements revised without explanation. And then an arrest. A man was taken into custody and charged with murder. On paper, the system appeared to be working. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. The accused man's first court appearance was brief. Procedural, controlled. Prosecutors outlined the charge. Defense requested time. The judge nodded. No deep questioning. No public scrutiny. No visible urgency for a dead teenager. To the family, it felt less like justice and more like administration. A box checked. A file moved forward. Behind closed doors, whispers began. Why were certain officers reassigned? Why were key details sealed so quickly? Why did timelines stop adding up? Families often trust the system until the system gives them a reason not to. And once doubt enters, it spreads, not as a shout, but as a quiet, creeping realization that something isn't right. Judges are meant to be impartial. Courts are meant to be transparent. But transparency requires light, and this case seemed wrapped in shadows. Motions delayed, questions deflected, concerns labeled premature. To the family, it felt like the system wasn't just slow, it felt protected. As the legal process crawled forward, the family grieved in public and in private. They attended hearings that offered no answers. They watched officials speak carefully, too carefully. They learned that justice isn't automatic. It has to be demanded. And even then, it isn't guaranteed. A teenager is dead. A man is charged. And a system insists it's doing its job. But unanswered questions refuse to stay buried. Was the investigation thorough or convenient? Was the courtroom neutral or compromised? And when institutions protect themselves, who protects the dead? The trial has not yet begun. And the biggest question remains, will this teenager ever truly get justice? Or will the system make sure the truth never reaches the light? In most murder cases, unanswered questions are treated like fire alarms. They demand attention. They demand urgency. They demand accountability. But in this case, asking questions appeared to do something else entirely. It made people uncomfortable. Family members who pressed investigators for clarity were told to be patient. Advocates who requested records were warned about interfering with an active case. Journalists who asked about inconsistencies were met with carefully worded non-answers. The message was subtle but unmistakable. As court filings slowly became available, troubling gaps emerged. Key timelines didn't align. Witness statements appeared summarized rather than recorded verbatim. Some physical evidence was logged hours later than protocol typically allows. Defense attorneys would later argue that these were clerical issues. The family didn't see clerical errors. They saw cracks. And cracks in murder cases don't stay small, they widen. In an era where transparency is promised through technology, one question echoed louder than most. Where's the body camera footage? Records indicated that officers involved in early interactions related to the case either had cameras turned off or footage that was unavailable. No clear policy violation was acknowledged. No internal discipline was announced. Just another silence added to the pile. Prosecutors presented a narrative that appeared clean, controlled, and narrow. One suspect, one sequence of events, one version of the truth. Alternative theories were brushed aside early. Leads that didn't fit the timeline quietly disappeared from filings. This wasn't illegal, but it was strategic. And strategy, when unchecked, can start to look a lot like avoidance. Defense motions requesting deeper discovery were denied or delayed. Requests to compel additional evidence were labeled speculative. Concerns about investigative procedure were deemed irrelevant at this stage. The judge maintained neutrality, at least on record. But neutrality without curiosity can become complicity. And to the family watching from the gallery, it felt like the courtroom had already chosen silence over truth, with official channels closing ranks. The family did what grieving families throughout history have done when systems fail them. They investigated on their own. They spoke to people who were never interviewed. They traced movements that weren't included in police timelines. They uncovered contradictions that never reached the courtroom. And what they found terrified them, not because it pointed clearly to innocence or guilt, but because it suggested the full truth had never been pursued. At some point, the family stopped asking why mistakes were made and started asking who benefits from them. They noticed how quickly officials shut down discussion, how often procedures were defended instead of examined, how rarely anyone admitted uncertainty. Justice systems aren't supposed to feel afraid of questions, but this one did. Institutions don't behave like individuals. They don't feel guilt. They don't feel grief. They feel risk. And when risk appears, reputational risk, legal risk, political risk, systems do what they've always done. They protect themselves, even if it means narrowing the truth, even if it means ignoring the dead. Somewhere along the way, the teenager disappeared. Again, not physically this time, but symbolically. They became a case number, a procedural hurdle, a sidebar in legal arguments. The laughter, the plans, the unfinished future, all drowned out by filings and motions. Justice had become abstract, but grief never does. As weeks turned into months, attention faded. Another case replaced it in the news cycle. Another tragedy took its place. This is the quietest phase of injustice, when no one is watching, when systems relax, when accountability slips, and when the truth is most vulnerable. Then something unexpected happened. A document surfaced, not publicly, not officially, but enough to raise alarms. It contradicted earlier timelines. It referenced evidence never disclosed, and it suggested that decisions were made long before the courtroom ever heard the case. The family demanded answers. They were told none were necessary. At its best, the justice system seeks truth. At its worst, it seeks resolution. A conviction closes files. A plea avoids scrutiny. A narrow case avoids embarrassment. But justice demands discomfort. And discomfort was nowhere to be found. A teenager is dead. A suspect awaits trial. A system insists it has done enough. But the evidence tells a Messier story. The silences tell a darker one. And the family refuses to stop asking questions. The trial is coming, and with it, a final reckoning. The question is no longer who committed the crime, but whether the truth will survive the system built to judge it. Because justice delayed is not always justice denied, but sometimes it's justice buried. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more true crime story.